Hello, my name is Jamie Tomey, and I am pleased to welcome you to this special edition of Evanston Bound. Today we are speaking with Brandy O'Briant of Page Books and Rachel Round of Booked. Both are independent bookstores here in Evanston. Thank you for joining us. Hello! Welcome to our special edition of Evanston Bound, brought to you by Artist Bookhouse. I'm Jamie Tomey, and I'm joined today by two fantastic independent bookstore owners here in Evanston, Brandy O'Briant and Rachel Round. Rachel, how are you?
I am well. How are you? It's been, a crazy whirlwind of life, but we're hanging in.
We're hanging in. I'm good. Thank you for asking. Brandy, how are you doing today?
I'm fabulous. I'm happy the humidity's gone, the sun's shining, store is going to be open today. Nothing to complain about.
Oh, yay. All right. So I was explaining to both of you, one of the reasons why I wanted to talk with both of you is I wanted to check in on how your bookstores are going during COVID, but let's start out with the question of how you came to own this bookstores in Evanston. So the bookstores' names are Booked on Main Street and Page Books up on Central. So we have the north side of Evanston, we have the south side of Evanston. So Brandy, do you want to talk about how you came to open up your storefront at Central? It's across from the new Hune Bakery, and it's across from Evanston Art Center.
Yep.
Just east of Green Bay, right?
East of Green Bay, right by the metro station.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how did you come to this bookstore ownership?
Accidentally.
Yeah.
Oops. I really did not intend to open a bookshop. I had spent 25 years in corporate advertising and marketing, and I was out with some friends one night and talking over martinis, where all good ideas come from. And I said, I've got this idea that's kind of a Stitch Fix meets Book of the Month club.
Oh, cool.
And we kind of talked through it. It was three ladies who I really respect and enjoy their company. And so I was just really excited. When I get my teeth into something that I'm excited about, I can't stop. I don't sleep. So my daughter and I built the website in a weekend and put it out there with a $5 Facebook ad. And I just thought, this is going to be my fun little side hustle because I love books, and this is something that I can do that I care about. And my kids had grown and, were in college or high school, and I just had the time to do it. The time was right. So I just thought, this will be something I do out of my guest room. And then it grew and grew and grew. Then I got laid off. And I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to go all in on Page One. And we had kind of grown out of the guest room into the dining room and then into the living room, and it was taking over the whole house. So I started looking for industrial space. I thought we just need a space where we can do fulfillment and house all the books and things like that. And my daughter and I were going down Central Street, which is our neighborhood, and Perennials was having their going out of business sale. Yeah. So we'll pop in and we'll see what Patty's got for sale. So I started walking around, and it's beautiful. If you've been in the space, it's a really beautiful space. And I thought, I don't know if I'm ready to do a shop. I really just want industrial space. And then I went downstairs, and there's a huge basement downstairs. So I thought, well, we could fulfill downstairs, put our inventory on the shelves, and if people want to buy it, great. And then I was a bookstore owner.
Gosh, that seems serendipitous that it was like an Evanston-based Perennials was over on Central, and then they moved over to that other spot on Central, and then they were there several years, and then you just kind of walked in and there you go.
It felt right when I walked in, and I would say this whole journey has been really serendipitous. Everything, I said to my kids at one point, I said, when a door closes, I'll stop. But the doors just kept opening and things just kept feeling right. And here we are.
Yeah, and here you are. And so, Rachel, how did you and Chelsea come to open up Booked on Main Street?
So Chelsea open Booked on her own. I am a newish partner, and we've talked about it a lot of times. We both come from the education world. She was a teacher, and I was a professor of education and school psychology. She and I share a passion for getting books in the hands of kids and making sure that kids love to read early. So she opened the bookstore because there wasn't a children's bookstore in Evanston. And in fact, we're the only primarily children's bookstore in like the greater Chicago area. So we take some pride in being the kind of provider of children's books in the neighborhood. And we're both passionate about literacy starting early and getting good quality reading into people's hands early and often. I came from academia and was a professor, and I have a back problem, and I had to leave academia and was also kind of looking for things, and made this connection with Chelsea. And I definitely am the type that was like, oh, what would you do if you had all the money in the world, and you know, in your retirement, what would you do? And always it's been like, open a bookstore. And so when this opportunity came about and she wanted to partner, I was like, are you kidding? You know, and then for the first several months and still sometimes today, it's like I wake up and I'm going to Disneyland every day. Like,
yeah, it's your dream job. It's
my favorite place in the world, and there's nothing I love more than seeing a kid, you know, devour a book on the floor in here. And definitely was also very serendipitous for us to have this partnership and make it work and then be children's booksellers.
So I had no idea that Booked was the only children's centered bookstore in Chicagoland. I had no idea that was, well, I guess, yeah, Women and Children First is women and children.
Yeah. There are a lot of bookstores that have wonderful children's selections all over Chicago. We love them, as you can tell, and we talked about before, like Brandy and I, and generally bookstore owners are not competitive. We just want more books out in the world and more people to be reading. We love other bookstores that sell children's books too and have nice positive relationships with them. And it's nice to be a spot where kids can come in and things are at their level and really accessible and kind of a cozy space. And our central mode is that we really want to provide access to books for kids early and often.
So both bookstores are very welcoming spaces. They're so airy and light and beautiful, and the way that you both display your books is just very welcoming. And what I'm wondering also is how it has been since you have had to not be open as a space for people to go to, for kids to go sit on the floor and read, for adults to walk in and look at the tables and pick up a book randomly. How has it been for you both as bookstore owners who are very passionate about seeing people and bringing books into people's hands, but also seeing the joy that people get when you give them the book that they're meant to have at that moment?
So much of our communication with our readers is online. Anyway, Instagram is a huge part of our business. And so we have always had that experience anyway with people receiving their book, and the books that they get are wrapped and there are treats within the box. And so most people will unwrap them online and take photos and share them and say how much they love them. And so that communication didn't go away for us. I would say that the shop really is in service to the subscription and always has been, and probably in the future will be more so. So we love the neighborhood aspect of it. I think I really miss the book clubs. That has been the one thing that I've been like, oh, we can't replicate that in a way that is satisfying to me. But in general, I still feel like because we had that avenue already pretty well carved out and people were used to sharing and having conversations about the books they got online, I felt pretty good about it.
Oh, good. So because you already had the online piece, it was not quite a transition for you for the store to have to close necessarily. You continued with the subscription boxes. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What do people, when they go to your website, do they have to say, I love thrillers, I love fiction?
Yeah, I mean, it really is like Stitch Fix for books. You go in and you tell us what you like, what you don't like. You can tell us what your favorite books are. If you have a Goodreads account, you can include that link in there. And we will go every month and say, okay, Susie Smith, what are we going to send to her this month? We read her profile. We'll look at her Goodreads because they update that every month as well. And we choose a book for her. Then we wrap it. Everything we want the presentation to be really beautiful. We'll wrap it. She'll get a note from us. She'll get a bookmark, a sticker, and then usually like a literary candle or, you know, some sort of literary treat. Last month it was a tote. The month before that, I can't remember. But it's definitely a package that you get, not just a book kind of in an envelope, because we wanted it to be really special. We definitely continued in the middle of all of this. Around the end of March, I was starting to get worried. I was starting to get really worried because the shop had been, you know, more revenue than we anticipated in addition to the subscription. But still, yeah, the shop was, I never expected it to be much of anything, honestly. It was just, like I said, in service to the subscription. Well, we made Oprah's list of the best book subscriptions in April.
Oh.
And so our business basically, our subscription business basically doubled. So we emptied the shop of all of the inventory that we had in order to meet that demand.
Wow.
And so we really worked for a couple of months with the shop as truly a workspace. We cleared all the shelves. We sent out all the books. So when it came time to open again, we were like, oh, okay, we've got to start acting like a bookshop again. And we've made some significant changes. Like our shop is relatively small, and now we are dedicating the back half of the shop, in addition to the basement, to fulfillment. So when you walk in, really the front part is going to be the retail section, and the back part is full of boxes.
How was it to get the inventory back into that space in the front? I know a lot of books have been flying off the shelves, so to speak.
So, you know, we are a little bit the opposite. We are sort of like explicitly an in-person experience and really love having children in our space. And so we've always loved that bookseller communication, hand selling books to children. And by and large, our clientele that we cater towards doesn't have email addresses. It's their parents. We pivoted really quickly and we recognized that parents were going to be home with their kids and homeschooling. And it was this whole sort of community catastrophe of what's going to happen here. We never actually shut down. We have always been doing curbside pickup and local delivery, but we closed the doors to the shop and the doors to the shop are still closed. So we still are not ready for people to be in here. It's a pretty small space. And the whole point is we want kids to be able to come in and touch books and lay around. And we just don't have enough room for that right now. However, we did see a ton of community support when this all started, and a lot of parents reached out to us to order books for their kids. So we have been steadily sort of catering to the community as their needs have changed as we've transitioned from the school year now into summer. You mentioned before, we had at first some kits available that were curated by Chelsea that were books catered towards first graders or kindergartners or second graders, and those were big sellers for parents. And then we have a email address that's info@booktoevanston.com, and it serves as our sort of hub for hand selling books. So we get emails that are anywhere from, we would like these 7 books in particular, to I have a 5-year-old who loves unicorns and she can sound out these letters but not these ones, and we want her to move to this next level. What do you recommend? Lately we've had a huge market for anti-racist books and calls for books with diversity in explicit ways and implicit ways, the diversity. We've seen huge community support in ordering books for even babies are young and have those conversations, and we love to be a part of those conversations with families and with parents. As educators, we both know the importance of that, and we've always prided ourselves here at the store of having a pretty diverse selection of books from young babies to, we have a small adult section.
But mostly pre-K, babies to high school, college, maybe.
Yep. Yeah.
So one thing that you just said struck me was the piece about the anti-racist books and how was that for both of you to order or to get those in stock? Because I know for me, at least, I tried to order a couple of books, and I also want to talk about bookshop.org, but I ordered a few books and they're all on back order right now because everyone across America is trying to get a hold of whatever anti-racist book they can read right now, whatever is on all of the recommended lists. So how has that been for you? Have you had difficulty getting these books that you want to get into people's hands?
Yes and no. I think everybody's had some difficulty because they've been sold out across America. And that is at once really heartwarming that people want to buy these books and learn and educate themselves, and also frustrating. We did get some pretty large shipments of some of the high desire books recently, and we've been able to fill some orders that have taken a while. We have a new box of White Fragility in stock and Stamped from the Beginning. And my favorite that we were just highlighted in BuzzFeed Books, actually. This is Stamped 2, they call it, but it's the sort of young adult middle grade version of this Stamped from the Beginning. Extraordinary book, and we sell out every time we get a new shipment in, which is lovely. We have uplifted by the community support that we've had, how outstanding people are in wanting to have these conversations and have them early with their kids.
And learn themselves.
Yeah, and learn themselves.
Brandy, what have you noticed as far as the anti-racist books being sold out or not able to get? Have you been able to get them for your patrons?
I would say two things. I love bookshop.org. I absolutely love and adore it. I think it's a brilliant concept. So we have actually switched all of our ordering to Bookshop. So we're not doing any in-store ordering anymore. If they want to come in and order it, we will be happy to do that, but we're doing it on Bookshop, which can also be done at home. And the reason for that is with the margins that they're giving right now to independent bookstores, once you take into account our overhead, we're basically running even without having to do anything. Like, they do it all. So it's amazing. The situation is what it is. People have asked us if Bookshop can't get it, can we get it? But Bookshop is coming from Ingram as well. The stock that we see is the same stock that Bookshop is seeing. So no. But the beauty of our business too is that there are a lot of BIPOC authors and books and stories out there that aren't necessarily the ones that are trending right now. So the other big thing that has happened to us recently is that in addition to the Oprah windfall, Book of the Month Club made a major misstep recently. So we've gotten a lot of switchers, and we started a campaign where if you switch from Book of the Month Club to page 1, we will honor your credit with the BIPOC author book.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
Man, some people have a lot of credits. Like, we had one woman who had 22. The fun part of that has been going backlist and saying, you know what, it's not just the stuff that's new.
Right.
There have been decades worth of literature by authors of color about Black stories, and we've had a really great time going to backlist. So there is actually a lot of backlist inventory available if you kind of know what you're looking for.
Brandy, you mentioned backlist books from decades and decades. So what are some of the titles that you both recommend that are not currently trending that would be really good for people right now to learn, to read, to explore? And Rachel's getting her books ready.
I got so many books. I love books.
There's so many. There's so many. So what?
There's so many. I think Kindred, Octavia Butler, is one that we don't talk about enough. Pretty much anything by Toni Morrison. I will also say our main demographic is women 25 to 54. Family stories, life stories, female stories are really important. I think there are a lot of books that people have heard about and never actually read.
Right. Or they were supposed to read them in high school but got the cliff notes.
Exactly. Yes. Their eyes were watching God. So many titles like that. You know what I was looking for the other day? I was looking for Roots, and I was wondering if Roots stands the test of time. Because I think you also have to look at the book and go, what was the point of view of the author? Was it an author of color telling the story? Was it a white author telling the story? But there are so many different things out there that you have to also understand what the reader wants from a cultural perspective and where they're coming from to choose a book that's going to resonate with them. I mean, there are tons of good books out there, but like really understanding the stories that they like and then adding, so to speak, a bit of color to it.
I like that, adding a bit of color to the mix if they haven't experienced or if they're just starting to explore it. White woman 25 to 54 or whatever.
Yeah. I would also say too, one of the things that we did that was really fun is, I think it was June 15th, I can't remember, but it was the Pass the Mic Day. So again, a place where social media is really, really important to us. We gave over our Instagram and Facebook feed to Lauren Burke, who is half of the Bonnets at Dawn podcast duo. A lot of our readers, they love Jane Austen, 19th century fiction. So she had a lot of recommendations of the same time period, same types of stories, but with that bit of color.
Rachel, what are you recommending that we look back in the stacks?
There's a number of things. From the very beginning, we have this is a board book, so kids literally kind of come and chew on it. There's a whole series. The series is amazing. This one is Understanding and Getting to Know Sonia Sotomayor. We have Pride 1, 2, 3 in a board book. We've sold out again and again of A is for Activist. And then we also really keep diverse selection of picture books is a favorite. It doesn't have any words and it just tells a beautiful story in pictures. So it's really accessible for any age, of a girl who is named Vanessa and she is walking to school by herself and she is sad and another little girl notices and so she walks with her. And so the parents and the people that we're talking to that are requesting books are not just requesting explicitly anti-racist books, but just books that have diversity early and often. So Solway has been a big hit for us. We've done a few events with Jasmine Warga. This is Other Words from Home. But just making sure that we have a stock of books that are representative of our community and of our world. This is a newish one, Uncle Bobby's Wedding. This is an old one, Love Makes a Family, which is really diverse throughout and deals with a number of issues. I come from a disability studies background, so I make sure that we are well stocked in books that feature characters that have disabilities, not just books about disability, but just as people with disabilities are our community. So this is one of my favorites, Insignificant Life of a Cactus. A Good Neighborhood and The Girl with the Louding Voice both tell stories that deal with explicit ideas of race and racism in communities and are fiction. We've been selling a lot of these and recommending these. And then of course we have a pretty wealthy stack of books that are explicitly about racism and anti-racism. We are getting our shipment of Antiracist Baby today, knock on wood, by Emerton Kendi, and then this one, and then we have the adult version, obviously. This book is anti-racist and it's neon and fun throughout. This board book is amazing, Peaceful Fights for Equal Rights. So it's really a kind of blend of activism and different diversity of all different kinds, all the way to explicitly having conversations about racism and anti-racism with your young kids. So having the parents having the tools to be able to do that. And we are just tickled that our community is so eager and ready to have these conversations now, even with their very young children.
I think an important topic also is the role of the bookseller in activism and what that means. I think every bookseller I've ever met wants people to have a voice and think that books from different perspectives give voices to the unheard. And as booksellers, I think we have to take that stand with adults and with kids. We have a Black Lives Matter list on our bookshop, and we said that we were going to donate 100% of our proceeds to the NAACP, ACLU, and the Black Lives Matter movement. So we sent that out in an email to everybody, and we actually had a threat of a brick through our window because all lives matter, don't we know? Sometimes when you're a bookseller, you really come face to face with your ideals and go, how far do I go with this? And then I doubled down and I put a Black Lives Matter sign outside because you can't be intimidated, right? But I think that people look to bookstores and booksellers to set that tone. And so by what you show, like Rachel did in conversations like this, what you put in your window, what you put on your, tables when you first come in, speak loads to not just the community that you're in, because we're lucky that we're in Evanston and about as blue as blue gets, but also what a community can be.
So you are both helping to make our community what we really want it to be. we are a community of literary people. We are a community where reading is important, and that shows with how many bookstores we have and the library and all of the things that happen. But you're both helping to shape our literary community, and I agree with you. It's important to show that's on the tables and show that with the books that you have in the shop. And both of you actually mentioned that the role of storytelling, where it's an important piece to have a character. It may not be blatantly anti-racist or blatantly, this is a book about disability, or this is a book about a trans kid, and I'm thinking specifically of George, but having those characters just be characters. It's a person with a disability, or it's a person who is a Black detective in LA. I'm thinking also of a series of books that I'm reading right now by Rachel Housel Hall. But can you both speak a little bit about how that is important? Both of you touched on it a little bit, where it's the embedding of the story and the diversity of the story itself, but that it's not necessarily a blatant, this is anti-racist, but it is inherent in the story. Do you understand what I'm asking?
I do. A lot of people of color have said they want to read stories that are representative of their life, that they feel like they can identify with. Doesn't necessarily have to be, this is anti-racist. From my personal life, I don't know if you've ever read the book, This Is How It Always Is, by Lori Frankel. I didn't know what it was about, and I just picked it up and started reading it because everybody's like, you've got to read this book. It's great. It's about family dynamics. So I started reading it. I have a transgender son. I thought we had 4 daughters, but we actually had 3 daughters and a son. And that's basically what this book is about. But it's not about being transgender. It's about the family dynamics and how the change happens. For me, it was the closest thing and gave me a lot of understanding about, oh gosh, what is it like to be constantly faced with books that don't represent your life experience? And right. The call for that now, the very loud call for that, I think is wonderful and warranted.
It's about telling stories, because historically through literature, of course, it was all white men and telling the stories of white men. And then it was white women and white women's stories. And we're seeing a lot of diversity and own voices. But I was just wondering how that translates as a bookstore owner, and as a female bookstore owner, and as a female white bookstore owner in Evanston.
It's about human stories. Humanity is so wide. It's kind of the difference between the All Lives Matter and the Black Lives Matter right now. You could say all stories matter, and it's true, but white stories have gotten their day. Right now, Black stories matter. People of color stories matter. Disability stories matter. Queer stories matter, because they need to get their due too.
It's all widening the cast of humanity stories across the board. And storytelling in different ways helps us to understand and gain more empathy for people. And that's why storytelling is so important from an early age, which segues to you, Rachel. How do you feel about answering this question?
For us, it's a fine line. We are grateful to live in this community that is interested and supporting own voices and supporting these conversations early and often. When we used to be open for kids, we would have story times twice a week. Those allowed us to sort of curate a little bit what we were reading to children in the community. But mostly we want to be a place where children can come and explore and discover and have that first feeling of picking up a book and seeing themselves. And so having enough books with enough subjects and humans of different voices has always been our goal, so that every child can find a book in which they kind of see themselves. And having that experience for the first time is so magical. While we gladly and proudly display our Black Lives Matter sign and our pride flags and all of this, we also want to be a place where children can explore and touch the books and find themselves. That's our job as curators of our stock. We have a pretty small store, so we want to make sure that we are not carrying just the classics, that while we do have a small classics section, that we are really highlighting and bringing to view voices of all different kinds. We were proud sponsors of this year's Juneteenth parade. I've already been in contact with Kamoini Hendricks, who sort of has been heading this up for Evanston, about raising funds for next year's celebration. we want to be as supportive and involved as we can be with making this the community where we want to raise our own children. Both Chelsea and I have young kids, and part of that is having a children's bookstore where children can one day soon walk in and find that book that is the life changer. That's really our goal and our mission, is to have a story for everyone. Walk that line of gently curating so that our selection provides an opportunity for every kid to find that.
Oh my gosh, this has been so great talking with both of you about all of these things. And I know we could talk for another 3 hours about books. What are you looking forward to the most when you reopen officially? Are you looking forward to book groups? Are you looking forward to just random poppers in? What are you looking forward to the most?
I think book groups for sure, book clubs, the conversations that we have, wine.
Rachel doesn't get to have the wine parties.
Well, you know,
lots of wine in our
here we started a cookbooked club this year, so we were having sort of potluck style book club where we picked a cookbook and everyone made a recipe. So we did have a couple, just a handful of after hours wine drinking in here for parents and families. So
that.
I mean, we're looking forward to that, and definitely, like Brandy said, book clubs. But I think for me, the thing I'm looking forward to is being open to kids, to being open to eventually let them touch all those books and let them curl up on the floor. And there's nothing that warms my heart more than when we get a middle grader or a young adult in here who spends 2 hours on the chair and reads a book cover to cover. So I'm looking forward to having the kids back. While I know that we are putting good books in their hands because their parents have been awesome about ordering books for these months, I want to see them here.
Thank you so much for joining us for this special edition of Evanston Bound with Brandy O'Briant and Rachel Round of Page One Books and Booked Evanston, respectively. They're both wonderful small independent bookstores here in Evanston, and we hope that you continue to support your local independent bookstore. This was brought to you by Artist Book House, and if you would like to support more programming such as this and our foreign tours, please visit our website at artistbookhouse.com/donate to submit a little tiny donation. Every single penny helps. Thank you so much.